we got a balance patch. But before we get into this, a couple things. First and foremost, I stream on Twitch every Monday, EPT North America, 7 p.m. Eastern, EPT Korea on Saturday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern right now. Thank you, Daylight Savings Time. I'm not up as late. WTL Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, things of that nature. So you should check that out, twitch.tv/BAMWolf. And also, make sure to subscribe here, like, comment the video if you enjoy it. Let me know where I'm right, where I'm wrong. It really does help the channel grow pretty significantly. So please go do that one. But now, let's talk about some balance changes. Hey folks, we've already had one patch this year, but that one was small. It changed the meta around tremendously. It gave us hero style PvZ, really gave us some great games. But the rumor was that we were going to get another patch, a much bigger patch. Hold off on that one. There was going to be something that was going to shake things up. And it turns out that rumor was not false. We got a patch. The PTR notes dropped yesterday, and that gives pros about 2 months before Katowice happens. So I'm excited to see the meta evolution. But, let's get into it, shall we? It's a doozy. Warning you, it's a bunch of nerfs, some buffs, but I'm excited to see what you all think of things. But this is what I think. So it's patch 5.0.11. Now, the other key thing to notice, of course, is that this is going to be on the PTR for just a little bit. It does mean that pro players everyone actually will be able to give their feedback on the matter. Things that don't work can still be changed. I think it's likely that most of these changes go through, but it's not set in stone. Not just yet. So let's start talking about it. And before we talk about anything else, we should talk about the Zerg and how creep is maybe a little imba. So let's nerf it down a little bit, shall we? The cooldown doesn't really matter all that much because realistically, you don't want to spread creep tumors until the creep is at max range anyways. And that's not ready at 11 seconds normally. So I don't know how much this is going to do realistically. But the big one, and the one that really does make a lot of sense, is the fact that sight range is dropped by 1. It means that creep tumors now no longer provide vision beyond where the creep is, which is twofold. I mean, first of all, it's lore correct. It makes sense. Creep is kind of the sphere of influence where the Zerg can be. Why can you see beyond that? But also, it does force overlords in the early game to be a little bit further forward in ZVT in particular. You used to actually, and sometimes you still do. If you notice in pro level ZVT, you'll see the overlords kind of sitting beyond creep to see where the Hellions are coming. But you can get away with it sometimes, but just having creep tumors there and you can see beyond a little bit, get set up, figure out where the army's coming from. Well, it's a little harder to defend for Zerg to defend creep now. They can't see where the army is coming onto creep before it arrives on creep unless they sacrifice resources for it, which is really as it should be. As much as maybe makes me a little sad, I think that is a good change. And I'm excited to see how it does work out. Just take a little power of Zerg map control for the most part. But on the flip side, because there's that creep nerf, but hatches spread creep a little faster, so it does mean that there's a wall off a little easier on the natural and ZVZ. But the big one is now hatches have the same sight range as hives. This doesn't matter in the late game. You're gonna have overlords everywhere or whatever, but what this does mean is the trick where there are a couple spots on the edge of creep where you can drop a spine and the other Zerg won't see it. This is ZVZ change. That's no longer a thing. If you want to go a 12 pull, drone pull, drop spines, you got to be honest about it. You can't hide it as much anymore, which is just really nice, right? It does knock out what I think a lot of people would say is one of the more annoying to both to watch and to play kind of all-ins in ZVZ. Oh, great. They got a spore. They got a drone in the edge of my base. That sucks. Because, well, that actually change does unlock overlord positioning a little bit more. You no longer have to be quite as cognizant about maybe a random drone shows up. But nice CVG change. And, well, talk about Zerg changes. Vipers have been nerfed pretty significantly, actually. Now there's the 3/4 of a second after they abduct where they can't do anything. They can't do a second abduct. You used to be able to see you kind of abduct twice at once. You can't go backwards, even if you shift click. They're going to go forward. They're going to hang there for a second, then they're going to go back. This gives an opportunity for a counter EMP. Of course, after the abduct, but it means you can't maybe get a second one. It means it gives an opportunity for counter feedback. It gives an opportunity for stalkers to blink forward, marines to stem forward, whatever it is. Vipers are now going to be punished more for being over aggressive, for heavy shotting positioning, for army positioning being shoddy. So This is actually pretty big. I think this will take some of the power out of the Viper sails against mech and against Skytoss, which, well, it's going to be interesting because I think in general we're having a mech in particular is getting a couple changes that do empower it. Skytoss is getting some nerfs, but mech does get some changes that empower it a decent amount. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one works out. But Ultras now, they're little they're little babes. They're so cute. They're 12.5%. Their collision box radius, I believe, has gone down by 12.5%, which means that it's actually they go down a little smaller than that. It's actually a pretty big change. So Ultras for a long time have had a problem where they're super derpy. They can't get around things necessarily. This allows them to do so. This allows them to actually bring more of their numbers to bear in any given fight and also maneuver around other units in the Zerg army better. But because effectively the attack range, it's the slop range, but effectively the attack range is going up by so much, it means the Ultras are still able to make contact and damage units roughly similar radius, I think, or roughly similar distance from what they were earlier. Needs more Ultras to bear. This may be enough to actually make Ultras at least passable in ZVT. In ZVP, there are still reasons to get Ultras against late game Skytoss, for example, but really just overall buffed Ultras, and that's going to be nice, really because we want to see late game variability. You don't want to see the same thing over and over again. So making Ultras viable, it increases the flexibility of games. It's no longer a situation of, oh wow, this player is going Ultras, let's see if they throw or not. So that's good. Talking about things maybe coming to bear a little bit faster, though. Hydras have had their Hydra's speed upgrade, muscular augments, has been buffed by a pretty significant margin. Hydras are faster now, and couple this with the damage point buff, where it's only 0.1 seconds after they make an attack until they can accept another action. Suddenly, Hydras can maybe kite. Hydras stay with your army better. Hydras are able to reposition out of storms and other splash damage faster. This may make them much more viable in ZVP. We're going to have to find out. But it does mean that they can maneuver around the map more. They can get on top of tanks faster. Really, it's just Hydra buff. Hydras were not the best units in a couple matchups. So good to see them get buffed. And really, coupled with the Ravager nerf, right, where Ravager build time goes from 8.6 seconds to 12.9 seconds, so a solid 4.3 seconds nerf, it actually forces players to make a decision whether they go Ravagers or Hydras in the mid game. More so than, yes, and yes, Ravagers are a little more expensive, but in general, in a lot of situations, Ravagers have maybe been a little better. Because again, they're a little bit beefier, they have a spell damage, yeah, they don't attack as fast, but they have a similar range before the buff. But this is just apparently the patch of speed buffs. Because Bird Lords are now speedy boys. They get an additional 0.3-ish, actually 0.33 repeating force percent, or 0.33 move speed buff. It means they're not fast necessarily, but they can react to the map. And this is really, as much as you talk about, Broodlords are boring units, I think this is a good change. Broodlords first force very static play. And StarCraft is boring when it's static, when you're kind of sitting there, you're not doing anything because several reasons, but one of them is Broodlords are too slow to do anything outside of slow siege or defend positions. So by moving them around, especially as they nerf the Broodling duration, it's not going to last as long. This allows Broodlings to be active, or Broodlords to be active on the map, to do things to maybe even harass. We're going to see it at least once. That I can promise you. Don't know if it's going to be more than that. And what this Broodling nerf also means is that the technique that Dark used in EPT Korea against Beyond, where you spawn Broodlings and then you start attacking the Broodlings and send them across and kind of like swarm host a Terran into taking a fight. Granted, you need like 36 brutes for that. That's not as viable anymore because, well, by the time the Broodlings spawn and run, they're already dead, right? This does allow more basic units to maybe join the fight, but also that kind of Broodling abuse is not going to be a thing as much anymore. We didn't see it all that often, but I guess the balance team saw it just enough that they said, no, enough of this. And by balance team, of course, I mean the community of pro players that have been working on this. And of course, Ravagers, you have to build them in advance now. You can't reactively build them. It does force interesting mid-game decisions on Hydras versus Ravagers as well. So I'm all for it. Hey, force the Zergs to be a little bit more proactive about their defenses instead of just last-second morphing Ravagers and being fine. And now we move to Protoss. Shield batteries have been nerfed, or overcharge, has been nerfed pretty significantly. It means that Protoss don't have quite as much of the shield battery overcharge, I'm not dying, get out of jail free card. It's still powerful, 150% over standard shield battery energy, or shield battery shield recharge, and not using any energy for it is powerful, but not as powerful as it once was. Does give Zergs and Terrans and Protoss players the opportunity to push through a little bit better. And this might see a degradation of the single gate expand meta. I'm not confident. I said that last time when the Void Ray nerf happened, and then MaxPax figured out how to do it anyways. But when you go single gate expand, you have a lot less units. It does rely on shield batteries and shield battery overcharge to stay alive, and that overcharge being less powerful, maybe we go back to more 2-gate expands. I don't know. I'm sure MaxPax finds a way anyways. But if you are going to have your defenses nerfed a little bit as the Protoss, we should give them ways to be able to detect when that is coming in a little bit faster. And that's what this observer buff does. It moves a little faster. Now, of course, it gets a little bigger too. So that means that other players can see it shimmer a little easier. Of course, still invisible, not detected, but at least see it. Which kind of, funnily enough, kind of adds a little skill cap, increase that a little bit for observers. Weird thing to say, but so it goes. But really what this does is it allows observers to be more active on the map and therefore maybe get a better idea of when aggression's happening. Because, of course, it's going to be a little harder for Protoss to defend on skeleton crews compared to what they've been doing earlier. And hey, quality of life. Archons now can go through single gap walls. Gone are the days of recalling a bunch of Archons in your main base to deal with the Mutaflock and then having them stuck in there without killing a building. I'm sure Protoss players are dancing in the streets off this one. It also maybe validates... actually, this is going to change SimCity up a little bit, I think. I think that this might allow... there have been a couple scenarios where what Scarlet talks about with an enhanced or enlightened Protoss, where you wall off the entire third base, except a couple gaps where you can warp Stalkers into. But if single gap walls now, Archons can fit in. An Archon is a far more effective damage soak than a Stalker is, even if Stalkers are pretty good against Banelings. Archons are better. And Archons are better against Zerglings too. So that actually might allow for a little bit stronger Ling Baneling run-by defensive utility by Protoss players, which that might... It's going to be interesting to see how this one works out. This felt like a throw. Oh, okay, Archons, there's quality of life, but that might lead into things a little more. And of course, this was the, let's see, Hydra's speed got buffed. I mean, obviously only with an upgrade. Broodlord's speed's been buffed. High Templars now, their speed's been buffed by a little bit. It means that the High Templar now follow along the army a little bit more. They're no longer lagging behind. You don't have the situations of, I want to take a fight. Oh crap, my High Templar can't fight. My storms are late. I lost the fight. This might also allow for a little more High Templar maneuverability, maybe a little less necessity for keeping High Templars in warp prisms. Maybe more High Templar flanking ability. I have yet to see quite how fast this feels. But if you can free the warp prison from High Templar duty, then maybe there's a world, then that frees them up for other things. A much quicker warp in, or much closer warp ins, keeping tech units alive, say Colossus, things like that. This might, and I'm going to have to see how this plays out, this might actually increase the microability of the Protoss army by a good margin, which would be kind of cool. I miss the days of storm flanks and things like that. So keep an eye on that one. That may be how this goes. We're going to have to find out. But if you are certain Terran players, this is the change of the patch. It's not my change of the patch, but it is, for many people, the change of the patch. Purifier Orb radius reduced by 0.15. So diameter reduced by 0.3. 10% reduction in size. That's massive. It means that, well, disruptors are just not as good. They're going to kill less things. The one thing I'm curious about, but I don't have an answer for this just yet, is whether this means that disruptors no longer outrange tanks. Because it was right on the edge of Nova range before that change. And actually, that would have a pretty significant impact on the matchup. Normally, the rule of thumb goes that if someone's going tanks, you go disruptors because you can outrange them. If they're going liberators, you go Colossus because you can kind of fight in that range and poke out. So if that is no longer the case, does it make Colossus more popular in general because disruptors are no longer a tank answer? That's going to be interesting to see as the meta develops. I truly don't know about this one, but it's just, again, something we're going to have to think about. Lower levels, gold leaguers rejoice. Actually, everyone rejoice. Carriers are something that forces carriers out of the meta. It makes me happy. They're just boring units. So Interceptor shields reduced by 25%. Corruptors, Vikings now target carriers over interceptors just naturally, which actually is a buff against Archons if you think about it. Because when you go to target fire things, often you'll clump together and go target fire. That's no longer as much of a thing, and then maybe there's a little more spread, and Archons aren't going to blow things up as much. 2 big nerfs to carriers. Oh, thank goodness. Carriers as support units, fine. As timing's fine. 10 carriers as the entire army of Protoss late game, end me. And then, of course, there's a bit of a... I think this is a buff and a nerf. I'm not totally sure. For interceptor flying radius. So they're going to zoom... they're going to have a bit bigger of a range where they're going to zoom around the target, which means fungals, widow mines, parasitic bombs, things of that nature. For, say, the loco maneuver, where you... parasitic bomb the carriers, then dive the corruptors on top of it so the interceptors live in the parasitic bomb zone. That is going to be maybe a little less powerful, but on the flip side, I think this diminishes their DPS a little bit. Someone's going to study this and let me know. If you know the answer to this one, please let me know in the comments down below. Please, thank goodness, carriers are going down. But sentries, they're getting buffed a little bit. Off gateways only, not warp gates. So this means that, well, the first hallucination is 4 seconds faster. We talked about single gate versus double gate, and maybe shield battery overcharge changes that a little bit. This does give Protoss the ability to scout out scout out aggression a little bit sooner. Maybe this stabilizes PvP a little bit. I don't know. I don't pay attention to PvP as much as some other matchups, but Protoss players I've talked to seem pretty positive about this change. Again, more scouting. As a Protoss player is always going to be nice. Again, especially with that defensive utility that they lost with shield battery overcharge not being quite as strong. And then, hey, straight buff the forges. Why not? It means that really what this does, I think in part, it brings Protoss upgrades in time with the rest of the races. It used to be that you would have to spend chronos to get them there, which means that chrono upgrades are now going to be faster than Terran and Zerg upgrades, which is going to lead to some terrifying +1 blink timings, +2 blink timings, whatever you want to go for. They're going to be very fast, and this may end up being the overall highest impact change in pro play in particular. I don't know. Anytime when you give a wholesale upgrade to an army and you let that happen faster at pro play, I mean, that is a significant timing. So I'm excited to see what players can do with this. But if there's one change from the Protoss arsenal that I see getting rolled back, it might be this one, or maybe not brought back the same way, because again, we're going to have some fast upgrades. And then we move to Terran. And it's kind of interesting. They're removing enhanced shockwaves, which takes away some of the late game power of the Terran arsenal, but they're also increasing base radius from 1.5 to 1.75. So the first time the ghosts pop up, that push, they're more powerful, but they're not going to be quite as powerful as they would be once enhanced shockwaves arrive, which leads me to think we might start to see some like 3 ghost SCV pull type things that we used to see, because you're just going to have that much more power. That power spike is going to be so much bigger at that 6, 7, 8 minute mark whenever you get the ghosts, 8, 9, 10 minute mark. But in the late game, again, not going to be quite as powerful. And they get nerfed once again. And this, folks, is by far my favorite change in the entire balance patch. You can run away from snipes. They don't chase you until the end of time. One of the problems with ZVC in the late game, why we see it become so static, is the fact that a Zerg could not take a break-even fight, or a kind of wishy-washy fight. You run in, you either kill the ghost, you kill the army, or you kill at least enough of the ghosts that they cannot snipe down every single one of your tech units as you run away. And what that meant was you had Zergs afraid to take a fight, because, again, they would lose all their Hydras, lose all their Lurkers, whatever that is. Now they can take a fight, trade back and forth, the Terran trades, the Zerg trades, run away. This allows Zerg to be more active in the late game, forces maybe the Terran to be more active as well as a result of that, and hopefully is going to remediate some of the late game doldrums of no one wanting to do anything. So actually, there are a couple changes that make this happen. Broodlords faster, Ultras are better. Ghosts have been nerfed a little bit. That sounds terrible. Oh no, you know, it's gonna be super Zerg favored in the late game. But really, what these things do in general, because hey, Broodlings are nerfed. What this does in general is it just makes the late game more dynamic. It forces things to move around, not just these static two armies sitting across from each other, not doing anything, just positioning for 20 minutes, which is only a good change. And if there are too many nerfs to late game Terran, I mean, this is still PTR. That should come out in the wash, and maybe some things will change. But we do have a couple more late game options now available for the Terran as well. This Banshee change is more of a mid game one. Early to mid game, it actually makes Hydralisk rotors competitive against Cloak. Yeah, sure, you're not invisible, but you're speedy, and you actually get the upgrades at 100 seconds instead of 121 seconds, and it's 25 minerals and 25 gas cheaper. So brings Hyperflight rotors kind of in line with Cloak. So it's now a choice, not, oh wow, Hyperflight rotors is super rare. It's okay, do I want my Banshees to be faster, or do I want them to be indetectable? Different use cases for both. I'm excited to see how players make this work. Players like Maru and Gumio already have builds experimenting with Hyperflight rotors, so I'm excited to see what they do with this in particular. But also, hey, speed Banshees in the late game, that might end up, maybe not, but that might be a solution to, say, Bruther or to Ultras, for example. I mean, Banshees do bonus damage to armor. They do a lot of damage in general, and Ultras don't shoot up. I doubt it, but maybe something to think about. The other change, of course, is Cyclones are, once they have Magfield, are overall better units, but they're not as good against armor units. I'm being told this is a TVT change for the most part. It makes mech maybe a little more viable against bio. It allows mech to be more mobile against bio, because right now, it's Cyclone Hellion is not the best. It really, mech for the most part leans into tanks in TVT in particular. This might enable that a little more, and it does, of course, make it makes the Magfield build where you build 6 Magfield Cyclones and you snipe the third base of the natural of the other player. It makes that a little less strong, which that's nice. I mean, that was, again, just a little too punishing, I think. It makes me a little sad, though, because I like units that have very specific niches. I think that is good game design, because it allows units to be intensely powerful while not doing everything too well. Cyclone becoming more of a generalist kind of takes it out of that niche. But in fairness, maybe Cyclone needed the buff. It was not... You get a couple Cyclones as kind of a tool, but not a main army something. But on the subject of TVT changes, Sensor Towers get nerfed. Terrans don't have map hacks. Or they do, but it's not as bad. This will allow Terrans in TVT to be a little more active on the map. To be not quite as safe, which, again, TVT has been kind of painful on 3 bases setups for a while now, because you get 2 sensor towers, you see everything on the map. This allows players from leading positions to be able to be active or, make comebacks happen. And this has actually been a theme of really the majority of the changes here. They're allowing players to be more active on the map and have more agency, which leads to more interesting games to play and watch. And maybe, hopefully, we start to see that skill cap go up again, kind of like what Hero did with his style as a result of the last balance patch. And then this one's a bit interesting. I don't know where I feel on it. It is an overall, we'll go into it in a second, but it's an overall late game Terran nerf. Actually, really kind of, but an early game Terran buff. So Ravens are 50 gas cheaper. They are built 13 seconds faster. They get more energy to start, but that is really because, they get more energy to start, but also auto turrets cost that amount of energy. So auto turret harass, the first auto turret is faster, but the second one is a lot slower. But interference matrix and anti-armor missiles have been nerfed significantly. 3 less seconds on interference matrix means it's easier for, say, Colossus to survive and then rejoin the fight. It means that late game Raven span in TVT might not be quite as powerful. Yes, the tanks will be shut down, but not quite as long. And they shut down bioplay, not quite as badly. It's now the bio goes down to 1 armor. The Marines go down to 1 armor instead of 0. So it makes them a little tankier. So really giving maybe the Raven a little more identity in the early to mid game, while trying to remove the late game Raven spam. Which, again, anytime you have a late game composition where it's just like 1 unit, mass carrier, mass Raven, it takes away from the interesting parts of the game. So I'm all for it, but it is interesting seeing the Raven move from a very much late game unit where you get like 1 or 2 early to something that does seem to be much more early game focused. As the Terrans in general have a couple early game tools, Hyperflight Rotor Banshees, better ghosts when they pop compared to what they would normally have Ravens as well. So Terran's going to be a little bit stronger, I think, in the mid game, but maybe not quite as strong in the late game. Gonna have to see how this one shakes out. And then we get to some bug fixes and quality of life stuff. The first one, and actually there's a change later on. We're going to talk about these in unison. So all units now, they have to get within 2 range of the unit they're chasing before they start trying to attack instead of move, and then start to decelerate and enter that action instead of 5. So they have to get a lot closer. But this is nice because they're not going to decelerate as fast. It means they can get within attack range, melee range, a little bit faster. And couple this with the worker change. Where is it? The worker change here, where your workers no longer need to decelerate before attacking. This is actually, I think, going to be pretty significant in, say, TVT versus Proxy Reaper, or just in general versus Proxy Reaper versus 12 pools, things like that. It means the drones are going to be much more powerful. The workers are going to be much more powerful in defending these early game rushes because they don't decelerate quite as far away before they start attacking, and they don't have to fully decelerate before they attack. So this might lead to a pretty significant DPS boost from workers, which is going to be interesting. And actually, that it's funny. We talk about speed boosts and maybe what races are going to be stronger here and there. This patch really does seem to be two things: adding more agency on the map with speed and making things come faster, and also making things more stable, making PvP more stable. Actually, kind of destabilizing TVT a little bit, but stabilizing the early game in a lot of these matchups, getting us into the part of the game that we really enjoy. So yeah, maybe taking a little power out of the cheese, but adding a lot of that power into the mid game. I'm all for. Factories no longer spawn or no longer get blocked as much. Tanks and Thors can have a little more room to spawn out if your SimCity is bad, and that happens in pro level. Sometimes it happens a lot more often, of course, in lower level. And this was a trend in the previous patch. We're seeing it happen here too, where a couple of these changes are just things that probably won't impact the pro level all that much, but they will be significant buffs to players at lower levels, which is always nice. Remove things that are just kind of hard skill caps that make the game unfun to play. Much like Widowmine's taking forever having a significant variance in when they unburrow and reburrow. They cut it in half, they didn't get rid of it. Part of that actually is an engine thing where you don't want everyone executing the same action at the same time because that's a lot of load on the engine. Part of it just making it visually better, but they cut it down a little bit. Widowmines are going to be a little more responsive. StarCraft saw the Stormgate news and saw how they were going to be the most responsive RTS, and they said, we're going to make our Widowmines 0.18 seconds more responsive. How about them apples? And then Cyclones and Widowmines both will no longer auto cast their spells on eggs, so no longer are they going to waste energy, waste timing on doing that. And then also Cyclones will no longer, apparently they would lock on when they were in Medivacs, and that's a bug. Bye-bye. It's gone. And luckily we never saw this in pro play, but talk about bugs being fixed. It used to be you could spam the stop command on shield batteries, and that would cause the shield batteries to massively increase the speed at which they healed. Effectively animation canceling. And actually we saw a bunch of tournaments, online cups, add in the rulebook that you couldn't do that. But also it was hard to pull off because you couldn't do anything else. You just had to spam that stop button. But say, for example, you want to pop shield battery overcharge or just regular shield battery. Actually, because the Voider is going low, you target that on, spam S, back up to full, you go do something else. We never saw it all that much. But and then a couple of quality of life changes for adepts, queens, lurkers, whatever. This one actually is big though. Stasis warp, ward attack priority increased from 10 to 20. It means that everything really, but queens in particular, will now target attacking the stasis trap instead of the oracle given the choice. Makes it a little bit easier to defend against stasis traps and mineral lines. More moves stasis traps from a mineral line harassment tool to a map control tool for the most part, like we do see where they're used to lock off space, things like that. Still going to be viable, but it means the queens are going to be just automatically targeting these, which again does make life a little bit easier. And you can say you can burrow widow mines off a stasis trap, things like that, which is nice, quality of life. And then the other kind of a big thing of the rest of these issues is the fact that you can shift click morph paints. I didn't actually know this was unintended behavior. I just assumed you couldn't do it. But for really, as long as StarCraft has existed, you couldn't move Lings into a location, shift Cubanes. Now, even with this change, you can't shift Cubanes and then shift them somewhere else once they've morphed. You still have to shift Cubanes and then go over and queue them later on. But this is just nice. It means setting up run by is easier. Quality of life change. I don't think it's going to be super significant, but makes Zergs happy. And after the beating they took on Ravagers and some other things, maybe they deserve it. But folks, that's the balance patch. Not all of these changes will go live, but I assume most of them will. If you want to check it out, it is currently live on the PTR. Players like Scarlet and Nina and Hero Marine and others are streaming their perspectives, playing games. I expect there to be some tournaments. I expect Wardia to do it. I'll either try to B-stream that, cast that, get the replays, or run my own. We're going to find out. But for now, folks, what do you think? Are my takes right? Are they wrong? Do you have other things? Do you have insight? Is there something I missed? Let me know. Comments down below. I want to hear from you. But hey, I'll see you next time. And of course, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. See you next time, folks. Have a good one.